Greetings, everyone. This is Rock Connection with the second part of the weekly comic book roundup. We just saw this week's X books, a couple of miscellaneous Marvel titles, as well as the week's one DC book. So let's move back to the Marvel side of things and kick things off here with Savage Avengers number 7. So where we left off in Savage Avengers, surprisingly, the annual actually matters. I say that because it's a rare thing for an annual to have a story that is, or at least that actually matters to the overall narrative of the series. So where we left off, Kulan Gath escaped, taking Brother Voodoo with him, and the City of Sickles vanished. Our heroes, Elektra, the Punisher, Conan the Barbarian, Wolverine, Venom, went their separate ways, with Punisher going with Punisher and Conan making their way out of the Savage Land together. In Brazil, or actually, yeah, I think that is Brazil. Anyway, in South America, Conan and Punisher would part ways, and Conan would continue on foot. And he fought some slavers. He had a brief team up with Black Widow and David Hellstrom, and well, is continuing on his journey. We open up with the quick version of Brother Voodoo's life. He went to college, got a degree that he doesn't use. His brother Daniel was an own gun in Haiti, and when his brother was murdered, Jericho took his place. He studied under Papa Jumbo, became Brother Voodoo. Also, Daniel's wraith stayed with Jericho. However, over time they have drifted apart, and the Hand recently resurrected Daniel Drum to use as a weapon against him. And now it might be his turn to die, he thinks. He's a guest, as it is, of Kulan Gath. And he has a drink for him. Gath has a poison drink for Brother Voodoo, but mainly because, well, what Kulan Gath wants to show Brother Voodoo he can't see while his heart is beating. So he takes one pill and then he sips the poison, and is shown Shumagorath basically attacking Paris and taking over everything. We cut to Elektra, who is trying to find Daniel Drum by killing members of the Hand. She's also having a talk with Doctor Strange. And turns out that the amulet of Kulan Gath's, which was stolen by Conan, was in fact the third eye of Agamotto. So in Brazil, Conan continues his path north, stops in a bar, has a brief fight with some of those there. Has a few drinks, which he's not too fond of beer in this time period, and is then taken out with a poison dart. When he comes to in the bar, he immediately assumes magic is taking place, and there are commanders waiting for him, whom he quickly dispatches. And then he makes his way through, only to burst out from a giant dome in the courtyard of Dr. Doom's castle, Doomstadt. He is then met by some of Doom's palace guard until Doom himself stops the fight, introducing himself to Conan and saying, "Okay, hey, Conan asks Doom to give him one reason not to drive his sword, for Conan to not drive his sword into Doom's eye, and Doom says, "Well, if you do, my servants won't cook for you." And basically, say, "Hey, in the autumn, my kitchen prepares turkeys and geese, specked with beetroot soup. Also, this is the season when the finest cakes are tapped. So he's, join me and eat like a king." And Conan says, "Okay, fine, we'll eat. But if the feast is lacking, I'll kill you in your own castle." And Doom says, "Hey, if the meal's subpar, I would desert it." And so Conan and Doom introduce themselves to each other as they walk into Doomstadt. Surely this is going to go just fine. Especially when you look at next issue's cover. See? Look at them. Just two buddies hanging out. Victor and Conan. Oh boy. I get the feeling that this ties in with events that will be brought up in the new issue of Amazing Spider-Man as well. Moving on to Web of Black Widow number 3. Where you left off, Black Widow had been righting some of the wrongs of her past. However, someone is taking people out and wearing her face to do it. So the issue begins in the European nation of Simcaria, traditionally ruled by the mercenary Silver Sable. And Black Widow is waiting on the young woman, Yelena Belova. Also the Black Widow. A Black Widow. There's a flashback, a Red Room flashback with Natasha training a young girl named Toma. However, her face cannot be seen in all of these. Then in Chernaya, a group of guards are anticipating an attack by the Black Widow. A car explodes outside, and as they investigate, the Black Widows enter the building. They make their way in, steal some key cards, and we get another flashback to Black Widow and her husband talking about Toma. Who is at this point set to go accompany Natasha on a mission. So the Black Widows go a bit incognito, break into the server room, and we flash back to the job where Natasha cracks a safe and steals a ring of keys out of it. Toma, however, insists that, they wouldn't have sent both of them for a simple theft. And seemingly, Toma is killed as Natasha leaves. Back to now. Natasha and Yelena are going through are getting information off the servers that out of the server room they've infiltrated, and encrypting some of it, or keeping some and copying it. When an alarm goes off, as they make their way through, they discover that someone else has been there, and whereas Yelena and Natasha were using lethal force as a last resort, the other intruder has not been taken as a last resort, and they come upon what seemingly Natasha about to killing a man in his office. And the imposter does manage to defeat the two widows and knock Yelena through a window, giving herself time to escape while Natasha saves Yelena. And they also kind of get an explanation that, there was another reason why Natasha brought Yelena in on this, to make sure that the imposter wasn't in fact Yelena. Then we have another flashback to the aftermath of the mission with Toma, where the headmistress of the Red Room explains to Natasha that Toma was showing signs that she was unsuitable for the program, and having her tail Natasha meant that Toma would either have to fall in line or break. However, there's a young girl watching from a doorway. And as Yelena leaves, Natasha says to herself that the body might be identical, but the mind, the memories, she's still figuring out how much was left behind and which ghosts are gone for good. And that is where the issue ends. Wait a tick. Not definitively say it, but I think maybe Hawkeye might be involved in the next issue. Seeing as how the cover does show Natasha holding a bow and arrow. So, yeah. Moving on to Amazing Spider-Man number 33. Continuing the 2099 story that began last issue. So where we left off, okay. Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man year 2099, had come to the present, being held by Roxxon, managed to break out, but his powers failed him at a crucial point. Meanwhile, in Peter Parker's life, Peter's long-lost sister, Spy, has recruited Peter to help her stop a weapons sale being connected by the Chameleon. The sale, it turns out, is to the Foreigner and is of the Infinity Formula, the drug that kept Nick Fury young for as long as it did. Also, it should be noted, the same drug which saved Mockingbird's life when she was injured. I don't remember by who exactly, but yeah. And it turns out that Foreigner is being employed by none other than, or is working with none other than, Silver Sable, traditionally the leader of Symkaria and on-off ally of Spider-Man, also world-renowned mercenary. So we begin catching up with Spidey 2099. He's trying to make sense of everything. Trying to remember what he came back to the past to do, and make sense of what he's seeing in front of him. As he's attacked by some Roxxon knockoff Hulks, who do kind of kick his ass a little bit. But he does manage to at least begin to put up a fight and escape so he can find Peter, who is currently facing the business end of Silver Sable's rifle. However, Peter's sister has gotten behind Silver, and she shoots Silver in the head, revealing it to be nothing more than a life model decoy. Turns out that Silver Sable, when the last time that Silver Sable and Spider-Man ran into one another, it seemed like she was killed by the Rhino aboard Otto Octavius' ship. And she explained that, no, I survived by cloaking myself so that I was lost in the waters, which she did do, but apparently the Rhino left her badly injured and stranded as the ship that they were on plummeted toward Earth. And then Foreigner found her and did what he could to take care of her, utilizing an LMD to be an LMD that an android avatar basically, to be controlled by Silver's own thoughts, voicing her own words. Basically, the Silver Sable the world needed. And in part because her rival, Countess Karkov, and a former associate, shall we say, of Norman Osborn, while she has been sentenced to house arrest, her influence does grow. And the country is still dependent upon the arms manufacturing contracts that she signed while she was working with Norman Osborn. So Symkaria is making weapons of mass destruction for the highest bidder. However, and she can't just stop that, because stopping that would basically plummet her country into poverty. So, yeah. And then, of course, there's Symkaria's neighbor to the north, Latveria. Border skirmishes between the two have been increasing rapidly, and it seems things are escalating beyond Silver's control. So she figures she takes the Infinity Formula to at least be restored to health. And even then, it is kind of a crapshoot. And so Peter's sister's like, fine. You know what? I was trying to catch Chameleon and he got away, so see y'all. And goes off. Meanwhile, it turns out that the Chameleon is playing both sides of the conflict. Working both for Countess Karkov and supplying the Infinity Formula to Silver Saplanova. However, he is honest about it, so there is that. And a weapon has been sent to Hitman. Back in New York, Spider-Man returns to New York after Silver is injected with the Infinity Formula. And, well, it turns out their presentation was today, and so one of the members of his group apparently left some questions for people. 3 envelopes. One with the time that Peter arrived, the color shirt he's wearing, and what his excuse would be for running late. Turns out that Peter's classmate is using something he refers to as the clairvoyant, which explaining is based on Reed Richards' seminal work and the knowledge that we do live in an infinite multiverse. Which means any choice we could make, any direction we could go, somewhere out there we already have. The clairvoyant peers across those multiverses, looking for commonalities, then gauging and weighing the preponderance, finally leading to a statistical likelihood of any given outcome. And right now what it can do is extremely limited. He needs a power source big and adaptive enough to increase the quantum computing capabilities. But there are numerous applications from technology, medicine, politics. It could be a game changer. Meanwhile, at the UN building, Chameleon, masquerading as the UK's ambassador to the United Nations, is speaking out against Latveria, and the Latverian ambassador then retorts in kind. Meanwhile, at least signals a retort is coming. However, it will not be from him. As it turns out, the sovereign of Latveria himself has just arrived outside the UN, and is the hitman's target. None other than Dr. Victor Von Doom. Presumably this is not at the same time that he's having dinner with Conan of Samaria. And that is where the issue ends. Moving on to Miles Morales Spider-Man number 12. Where we left off, Miles had been called to the hospital by his father, because his mother was in labor. Very suddenly. Along the way, he spotted his Uncle Aaron seemingly getting ready to shoot someone. I'm going to rephrase that. While tracking Ultimatum, Miles caught sight of a sniper, who turned out to be his Uncle Aaron, the Prowler. Turns out Aaron's been hired to kill a mafia don, Don Carlino, and, well, hired is not so much the word. It was requested that he perform a favor by taking out Don Carlino in exchange for the new suit that Aaron got to help rescue Miles. And Miles does bring on a few occasions that, you're about to kill an innocent man. It's like, he's a mobster. He's not exactly innocent, dude. But also explains, it's how I'm repaying, making a repayment for this suit. So, Miles and the Prowler clash. Turns out that the Prowler suit is somewhat insulated from Miles's venom blasts. Boots appear to be very intricate, with slots for each toe. Though this also leads to Carlino's men firing at the rooftop. And finally, Man Mountain Marco showing up and fighting the two of them. And during the fight, Miles runs out of webbing, but they end up knocking Marco off of a building, though he survives. And so Aaron Prowler's got to figure out what to do now, and so he calls, when he's applying his armor, Ceres. She's already aware that he flubbed the hit. There is now a price on his head. And it's expected that she clean up her mess. But Ceres offers a deal. If she were the one to capture him without canceling the bounty, she might be able to negotiate a settlement with an ultimatum. Though he's got to make it to Red Hook, and there are going to be a lot of people between where he's at and Red Hook. And we end with a map from point A to point B, and various silhouetted figures in the background. And that's where the issue concludes. Moving on to Black Cat number 6. So where we left off with the Black Cat. Her mentor, the Black Fox, hired Black Cat and her crew to steal the following: an old master's painting of Christ crucified with 2 thieves, which she stole from the Frick collection; original deed to the island of Manhattan, which she stole from the Sanctum Sanctorum; the authentic manuscript of hypothetical science, the papers of Phineas Randall, which she sold from 4 Yancey Street. It's noted that that particular heist was a challenge, and a requisition for an evening of personal time has been submitted and approved. And finally, also, she has managed to steal the one heart of Johnny Storm. It was an incidental acquisition. So, turns out, Black Cat's got a date. Meanwhile, Gray Fox is working on various bits of info. The date that Black Cat has is with none other than Georges Batroc, also known as Batroc the Leaper. So the issue goes back and forth between their date and the Thieves Guild attacking Black Fox. And Black Fox does manage to take down more than a few of the Thieves Guild hired the goons for the Thieves Guild. But he is captured. During their date, Batroc and Black Cat break into a penthouse apartment and steal a few things. Nice glass, or a nice cup, and Batroc grabs a blender for her, explaining to her that smoothies are also nice. And so they have a time of things, but the Thieves Guild have gained the upper hand on Black Fox, and now the leader of the New York Thieves Guild, Odessa, has Fox in her custody. And as Batroc is getting ready to leave, he's headed to Canada for a job. Felicia is called and informed that the Thieves Guild has Black Fox. And that is where the issue comes to its close. Next up, in a couple of weeks, will actually be the next week, not a couple weeks, but next week will be Black Cat Annual, featuring the wedding of Black Cat SpiderMan? Well, okay. I mean, I'm not opposed to that entirely. I prefer Peter with MJ, but no, I'm sure there's a story reason behind it that as clearly Spider-Man and Mary Jane have gotten closer in recent months in Amazing Spider-Man. All right, and now final book of the week: Absolute Carnage, Weapon Plus. Okay. Whew. All right. During World War II, the U.S. government created the first super soldier and inadvertently kicked off a biological arms race that spread across the globe in time. Spread across the globe. In time, an international clandestine organization called Weapon Plus arose to amass and allocate the world's super soldier research in the form of siloed programs. Each program was given a Roman numeral designation and research speciality. One such branch developed weapons based on extraterrestrial parasites called symbiotes. All the events of this take place before Absolute Carnage #1. Good to know. So we begin Weapon 5. No, I take Weapon V. Well, Weapon 5 or Weapon V, however you want to look at it, is attacked by Carnage. Most of the members killed. Mars team, the team was supposed to contain him, has disappeared. In Drumheller, Alberta, Clayton Cortez, also known as Weapon H, is about to pick up his mother-in-law and head on. However, it turns out that his old commanding officer is the leader of Mars team. And him and his team, him and the rest of Mars team have taken Clayton's mother-in-law hostage, and they need Weapon H's help. So we get a little more information about Weapon Plus and an idea of what Grendel is. Grendel was a dragon of liquid hatred frozen in ice, extraterrestrial in origin. It also kind of got the ball rolling on weaponizing animals for the program. Then came the Sim Soldier program in the 60s. This was covered in the one-shot Venom a few months back, last year, think about it. Wounded soldiers were one of the samples of the Grendel entity and tested during Vietnam. Massive failure. The Sim Soldier project was shuttered, and Weapon Plus appropriated what personnel and samples it could, and thus Weapon V was born. Over the years, S.H.I.E.L.D. and the government dabbled in weaponizing alien symbiotes, most commonly the Venom entity and its offspring. Weapon V developed in parallel from the shadows, learning, gleaning data, and technology. 7 weeks before this, the Grendel entity awakened for the first time in modern history and attacked New York City. Since the Sim Soldier organisms were part of the larger Grendel entity, Grendel itself is part of a larger whole. Cycling, it's linked to the hive mind that is linked to Null. And the scientist working with Mars' team has some theories, namely that Carnage appears to have made a contact with Null, the alien godhead, and has become the Red Messiah, a demigod. And, well, they kind of set up that, yeah, the Doc is looking forward to this. And so Carnage comes a knocking. Weapon H takes him on. The bus that he uses as a decoy is blown up, but it doesn't really do anything to Carnage. So Carnage and Weapon H duke it out, and yeah. It turns out that the doctor has been, who we have seen to constantly be using eye drops. Well, it turns out it's not eye drops he's been using. He's been dripping symbiote DNA into his eyes, allowing him to see what the Grendel saw. And he is convinced that yes, Carnage is the Red Messiah. So Mars' team gets involved in the fight against Carnage. However, the weapons the flame weapons and sonics aren't really doing much of any good at all. And so Carnage goes after the rest of Mars' team, and Clayton catches up with his mother-in-law. And his mother-in-law informs him that, yeah, the doc said that the doctor told her that killing her would have been a mercy. Letting her live was actually quite cruel to do. Meanwhile, the footage of everything is being viewed by Weapon Plus. And so they're using the information that they gathered from the battle between Weapon H and Carnage to basically add to what Weapon 30 will know. And that is where the issue concludes. That is also where the roundup concludes. So as always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what comics you picked up this week and what you thought of them in the comments. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.